When I was 13 years old, I was convinced I had ADHD. I went from being one of the top people in my class to one of the dumbest, right? I couldn't do anything. I was convinced my brain was broken. I would read sentences multiple times and nothing would make sense to me suddenly. I would have to go back through it. I could not pay attention. I used to procrastinate on my work all night, my homework all night until it got to the 11th hour when I would finally do it. I remember that I couldn't pay attention to what teachers were saying. And I used to play this little game where I would, in my head, I used to try and gamify it, right? I used to think to myself, what are they trying to say in this sentence? And I would try my best to summarize it on paper, right? I also remember as well that I would essentially make friends with people who were very switched on, who would listen in class. And I was a good people person. So even though I might have been useless at everything else, I was quite a good people person. I would make friends with them and I would get their phone number so I could text them and ask them what we have to do on homework that we've been set. See, I wouldn't even listen to the objective of the homework that was being set in the class. I would most of the time not even note it down, and when I did note it down, it would not make sense at all. I just note down some little note form notes, and they wouldn't even make sense to me, what I actually have to do. And this problem of not being able to concentrate, thinking I was absolutely terrible at everything, thinking I had severe form of ADHD lasted for years and years and years. And I made increasingly bad decisions. I would, I got in with the wrong friend group. They didn't really respect me very well. I got in with the wrong career, stayed too long. I also went to uni to study psychology, which was semi-interesting and has helped me a lot later on in life. But at the time, I didn't kid myself, right? I wasn't kidding anyone. I was going to uni to party for 3 years, and that is precisely what I did. I was a drastic underachiever. I went from being an overachiever to an underachiever. And fast forward to, I'm in my 30s now, and I have just finished, I started coding about 2 months ago, and I've just finished coding my first software product. And it's in beta, so it's on the early stages. And I thought to myself, okay, if you know anything about coding, it's the hardest thing to do, right? It really, really pushes your brain, because it's like learning a different language, but there's no context of that language, Like in French, bonjour is hello. You understand that this is a greeting, right? But in coding, you haven't got the context there because there's not a similar language you already know. You have to learn from scratch. It's very, very difficult. And I've created this app, and I've built multiple businesses. Some have done quite well. I'm also super, super consistent with health, right? I go to the gym 6 to 7 times a week. I, do combat sports, boxing, Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, things like that. If you look at my Fitness Pal here, my Fitness Pal's a diet app, so you track what you're eating. It counts calories, tells you how much protein you're getting. If you look at that figure there, figure at the top, 591 days in a row, I have logged in and logged the foods I've eaten. And I thought to myself, how can I be so consistent these days? And I used to not have that at all. Not at all in the old days, right? And I thought to myself, what advice would I give myself back then that I now know now? And it's important because I speak to a lot of people who are building a business, a lot of people in the agency space, and consistency and focus is some of the biggest problems they have. The newer generations, maybe they've been brought up with TikTok, too many girls twerking on Instagram, whatever, and it screwed the brain up a little bit. But I think to myself, there's a few different aspects to how you can get better at this. And first of all, I used to sit in a classroom listening to a teacher, and I really, really vividly remember now what I used to think to myself when I was in the classroom. And this was a key, and I never picked up on it. I used to think to myself, why, like, what a waste of time this is. I'm getting taught like about isosceles triangles and the amount of degrees between the, the parts of the triangle. And I used to think to myself, like, why is this ever going to be relevant to me? Like, why am I ever going to have to need this? Well, I'm going to be stuck on a desert island and I've suddenly got to get my protractor out and start measuring, like, oh, well, the sun is in this direction. Like, it was a very, very weird feeling for me. Very, very weird experience, school was, because most of the stuff I was taught was garbage and it never applied to anything that ended up coming on up later on in life. Like raw psychology about how do you meet people? How do you make friends? How do you negotiate? How do you avoid procrastination? These were the real practical topics that appealed to me. And instead we got taught about a bunch of other things. And one of the emerging things which happened in my teens was that I loved to try and solve problems. Any type of problem, I would just try and solve it. And any time I'm given a problem to solve, I would instantly get into a flow state. I would instantly be super productive. I wouldn't be able to be distracted. It would take me like 0.2 seconds to get into the stage. And anything else, it'd be like an uphill battle trying to get me in the zone, right? And so it comes down to these two things, really. It doesn't matter what sort of medals and how good you've been in the past. What does matter is the environment that you're in and what you're focused on, right? Your environment is only going to help you move forward if it actually interests you. And that is super, super, super simple advice. But if you look through your life, you'll have something which is massively, massively interesting to you. We're in a weird time in 2023 because everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, but some people aren't cut out to be entrepreneurs. And I don't say that in like a belittling way. It's a very, very tough journey. You've got bumps all over the road, but also you need intense focus with consistent habits of building things brick by brick by brick by brick until eventually you've got something which you built wrong and then you have to dismantle the whole thing and start again. And I see people, like a lot of people these days who have, bought a course, who maybe they've followed Alex Hormozy online, maybe they've followed Iman Gadzhi, and they're thinking to themselves, what I really want is money. And what I really, really want is, the end goal there. And this is just a method of how I've got to go through with it. And I think to myself, that's the wrong mentality sometimes. And it's not these people's faults. It's the people who are selling it to them, telling you everyone can be everything they want to be. Yeah, you can certainly get to the outcome of where you want to be, unless it's something ridiculous like being a professional basketball player when you're only 5'2", right? Everyone can get to the outcome generally that they want to get to. However, the process between 10 different people to get to the same outcome is going to look very, very differently, because you've got to work out exactly what you're good at and what your strengths are and how you are as an individual. Are you introverted? Are you extroverted? Are you above average IQ? Are you under average IQ? There's nothing wrong with being under average IQ, by the way. I heard a guy he's worth about $1 billion, and he coaches people, and he was saying that people who are under IQ are actually the easiest to teach, because the easiest to teach and make the most money under him, because they basically don't go off and create their own solutions to the problem. They just copy and stay dead focused, right? So you've got to know these things about yourself. Like, are you book smart? Are you a problem solver? Are you an extrovert? Are you a mix of these things? Like, what are you good at? What do you repeatedly come back to do? What does your brain stick on at nighttime? And if you can figure that out, that is like 90% of the battle of being consistent and building things up. Well, I'd say about 50% of the battle. The other three things are health, fitness, fitness, diet, and sleep. So it's about 50% interest and then 50% the other three. If you can figure that stuff out, you're going to be doing better. So it's just a quick video from me today, but I want to drop you with that thought because I've been thinking to myself, I've been at both ends of the spectrum. I've been super, super wired focused, like I've taken some sort of exotic brain drug, cognitive enhancement, and then I've been at the other end of the spectrum where I can hardly get my friggin' clothes on in the morning, right? And I can't work out what anyone's saying. I think I've got something very, very wrong with me. You got to find out like what you're good at. What are you good at? Everyone's got something. All right. Take care. See you in the next one.